All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, welcome this afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our Lunch and Learn webinar on the current state of student loans. Again, we had a webinar about a month ago regarding the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program that is available online. We will also be covering some of that here today. So let's go ahead and get started. So today we will be covering the payment pause extension. I'm sure somebody here has a question about that. We're also going to be talking about the Biden-Harris debt cancellation and the status of that, including some of the lawsuits. We're going to be talking about public service loan forgiveness, or PSLF, if you have any questions about that. We're also going to be talking about income-driven repayment because a lot of folks have questions about that, or it's also called IDR, and the status of that program. We also are going to talk very briefly about a program called Fresh Start that there's not a lot of information out there about. So we wanted to make sure that if this applied to you, that you knew about it. We also have to briefly discuss the fact that there are so many scams that are going on right now regarding the entire student loan community. And so a lot of our constituents have actually, unfortunately, fallen victim to scams or could be falling victim to scams. So we wanted to make sure that everyone was very well aware of what kind of scams are out there and how they can report these scams. And then last, we will take some questions again, and I'll preview this now. And then again, right before we do questions, if you have very individualized questions about your particular situation, you should direct that at our caseworkers in either Jersey City or Barrington. The numbers for those caseworkers, I will put them up on the screen, but they can help you with your very, very specific situation. All right, so let's talk about the payment pause. We've been under this federal student loan payment pause for almost 2 3/4 years now. The original payment pause was supposed to end at the end of the year. That has now been extended. Now, this is kind of a different extension, and we'll talk about that in a second. So again, from now until whenever this pause ends, your borrowers on federal loans are not required to make payments on their student loans. If a borrower makes any kind of payment on their student loans, it will directly decrease your balances. So that's a personal financial choice for you, but just so you know, you will still continue to get 0% interest. You will not have to make any kind of payments on your loans. So nothing has really changed since that against anything we've been doing for the last 2 3/4 years. Now, this is a different extension, a little bit different. Before, we've always had this, oh, it's going to end on X date or Y date, and we get right up until that X or Y date, and then they extend it again. Well, this is a little different. The White House has said this time, okay, we're going to extend our payment pause because of the student debt cancellation lawsuits. So they are saying now that student loans will be paused until June 30th, 2023, or 60 days after this, the resolution of these Supreme Court cases. That's a little complicated and a little different, and we'll talk about when that could be for most people when we get to the student loan slide. So for right now, folks will need to know that, their loans could come back into repayment anytime after, April all the way to June 30th, 2023. And so that there's now a much bigger time period that we're looking at of when student loans could become due. So again, if you have very specific questions about your student loans and maybe, you have been paying, but maybe you shouldn't have been paying, you need a refund, you're looking at getting a refund, that's something to contact our caseworkers about. All right, so let's talk about the student debt cancellation program. So the White House announced on August 24th this plan to cancel up to $20,000 of federal student loan debt. So everyone who has federal loans, as long as you have incomes under $125,000 or $250,000 if you were married, receives $10,000 of student debt cancellation. if you had 20,000, or if you had a Pell Grant, you get up to 20,000. You know, this was all based on income. This is something most folks had seen, and a lot of folks had applied for. You know, again, the applications for the program opened up on October 11th. We had 26 million borrowers that applied for this program prior to October, and 16 million were, you see, I have quotes there, under approved. Now, as soon as this program was announced, we had 8 different federal lawsuits that were filed opposing this debt relief. You know, we're going to really only focus on 2 of those lawsuits because those are the ones that are going up to the Supreme Court. The other ones have been dismissed or, you know, are currently pending, but there are 2 really big ones that we should talk about that you probably heard about in the news. So the first one, right before Thanksgiving on November 11th, 2022, this judge in the case Brown versus U.S. Department of Education ruled that the president's student debt cancellation program was actually unlawful, and that caused a pause in the applications for the program. So if you had applied before November 11th, 2022, your application is still on file. You just can't receive cancellation. That's what that lawsuit did. Now, the education department has actually then filed an appeal in the 5th Circuit after that. And then the 5th Circuit actually sided with the Northern District of Texas right after Thanksgiving on November 30th. And it kept the student debt program paused. This is the first case that was actually appealed up to the Supreme Court. And this case was accepted actually this week to have oral arguments in February, and they have some briefing due in January. But this is the first case that we have really that moved fast, that paused the program. Now, again, if you applied for the program, your application is still on file. You just can't receive cancellation until these lawsuits are worked out. And, you know, if the lawsuits that come up and say, oh, well, this program is illegal, then we won't be able to give out cancellation. And we'll look to the administration to provide some other relief for these borrowers. Now, what is the other case? Because I talked about 2. The second case is Nebraska versus Education. So this is a case that originated out of the Eastern District of Missouri. And this is with 6 states, Nebraska, Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, and South Carolina, that they filed this lawsuit and claimed that the program was beyond the president's lawful powers. And on October 21st, a judge dismissed the lawsuit, the judge in the Eastern District of Missouri, and then the states filed an appeal to the 8th Circuit. That then, on November 14th, was overturned at the 8th Circuit. And this is also went to not help, but it actually solidified the pause of the student loan cancellation program. So the Education Department has also filed an appeal of the 8th Circuit's decision to the Supreme Court, and that also was accepted. So now we have 2 cases in front of the Supreme Court that will both be held in February. Now, we do not know as of today if these cases will be combined. Right now, it is looking like that they will be heard. There is no indication that they will be consolidated and heard at the same time. So they were both looking for oral arguments in February. It would be the end of February is what the briefing calendar for that looks like. Now, as you all may or may not know, you know, just because it's something is argued in front of the Supreme Court in February, it does take the justices a while to actually write their opinions and issue their opinions. So we expect, it is widely believed amongst the legal community and the student loan community that there will be a decision in April or later. You know, we've seen in years past where the judges wait or the justices wait until June to announce very controversial decisions. This would be a controversial decision, so maybe this is coming late in June, for example. But even if so what does this mean for you? Why do we talk about this? Well, if you applied for cancellation and you're waiting to see when this is going to be canceled or not, this will give you some indication about whether or not your debt will be canceled through this program. Or if you're one of those people that maybe this program, the Biden-Harris student loan cancellation program, doesn't cancel all of your debt. And so then your payments would potentially be turned back on after the COVID pause ends. You're looking at this so that you can figure out, okay, when are my student loans going to be due? So again, if we're having a decision expected in April and we have the White House saying, oh, payments will resume no later than June 30th, 2023, or 60 days after the resolution of that case, then we would be going up right up until that end of June time frame. So we would, it's pretty safe to say, come July 1st next year, a lot of folks will be having to pay their loans again, unfortunately, according to the White House as of today. So again, we think that this is not going to happen before April. 60 days past April puts us into the end of June. So we're looking around July, but it could be as early as, April, May. It could be as late as July. Again, check back with us, with the news, with the White House, with the education department, with your student loan servicer about when your student loans are coming due. All right. Now, some of you who are on this webinar received an email last week or this week that said, oh, correction. And you may have received an email before that said your application for student loan cancellation had been processed. And so what happened there is that the education department actually mistakenly sent out a bunch of emails telling folks that their student debt had been canceled. We have not canceled any student debt through the Biden-Harris student debt cancellation program because of these lawsuits. So if you received one of these emails that told you that, hey, my student debt was canceled, and you should have received this correction email saying, hey, nope, sorry, we made a mistake. So there is that. Again, if you have any questions about this and your specific situation, please contact one of our caseworkers. They are very happy to help you with this issue. Okay, so let's talk about some other programs that a lot of folks have questions about. Remember, these are a lot of different kinds of programs. The student debt cancellation, that's one whole thing. PSLF, that's a whole other thing. And then the IDR program, that's a third whole thing. So we've got a lot of different things here going on. So let's talk about something that applies to a lot of folks. And a lot of folks have a lot of questions about. So we have this public service loan forgiveness program, also called PSLF. This is a program that's been around since 2007. It says, hey, if you're a nonprofit worker, a federal government worker, a state worker, a local government worker, you can make payments for 10 years. You make 120 payments on your loans while you're working full-time for a qualifying employer like the ones I just mentioned, and your loans will then be forgiven at the end of 10 years. There was a limited waiver for this program that provided a lot of different flexibilities. And it allowed a lot of people that had maybe been in the wrong payment program or had not sent in their payments or had other things that were happening to qualify for this program. It was a one-time limited waiver. It expired on October 31st and it was not extended. Now, some of the advantages of the limited waiver will continue next July and beyond. And so we can definitely talk about that. That is something to talk about with our caseworkers and your individual situation. But Regular PSLF continues. So just if you did not take advantage of the limited waiver, you can still take advantage of PSLF. You did not miss out on PSLF. You just might have missed out on being able to consolidate or be able to get credit for times that you were working where you aren't able to get credit for now. And that is a very individualized discussion, and our caseworkers are happy to help you with that. Okay, so let's talk about PSLF just broadly here, because it's very confusing and confuses most people. So first off, you have to have the right kind of loan. You have to have a federal, what's called direct loan. So you will see this on studentaid.gov. When you look at your loans, it will say federal direct Stafford loan, federal direct unsubsidized loan, or subsidized loan. It will say federal direct plus loans. Yes, plus loans do count for PSLF, or you see a federal direct consolidation loans. It will say federal in front of your loan on studentaid.gov. If it does not say federal, that loan is not eligible for PSLF. Now, you also, not only do you have to have the right type of loan, you also have to be in the right type of repayment plan. This is an alphabet soup situation here. When you go in and are going into repayment, you have 8 choices. 4 of them, the bottom 4, are IBR, what's called new IBR or payee, ICR, and repayee. Yes, alphabet soup. All of these kinds of repayment plans allow borrowers to be able to pay based off of their family size and their income. So if you're in any of these and only these kind of repayment plans, that makes you eligible for PSLF. You also, this is the third requirement, you have to be in the right type of employment. These are the kinds of employment. So local, state, federal government, public schools, public hospitals, we'll talk about that in a second, public libraries, public universities, and you have to work 30 hours a week. Now, let's talk about what I said, public hospitals. This means you have to work for a nonprofit hospital. You can go back to our old or our last webinar on this issue on those slides, and you can see how you can figure that out and look that up to see. You can also use the PSLF help tool, which I'll talk about in a minute. But if you work for any of these kind of institutions and you're working 30 hours a week, you are eligible for PSLF. So you have to have, again, the right kind of loan, the right kind of repayment plan, and you have to be working at least 30 hours a week for the right kind of employer. Now, so you have to make 120 qualifying payments. That's 10 years worth. You can't prepay those payments as much as any of us would like to. But these payments also do not need to be consecutive. So say you work for 5 years for the state of New Jersey, and then you take a year away and you work for the private sector. You go work for a bank, right? And then you decide to come back and you want to work for Rutgers University, and you work for Rutgers University for 5 years. That would qualify you for PSLF. You do not have to make 120 consecutive payments. Also, for folks that have been under the payment pause, the COVID-19 payment pause, and you have the right kinds of loans, and you have you're working 30 hours a week for the right kind of employer, that COVID-19 payment pause counts as a qualifying payment. So you do not need to have consecutive payments, the COVID-19 payment pause, as long as you meet the other requirements, you're good for PSLF. All right. So how do you know? How do you know if you're in the right place and you have the right loans and you have the right employer and everything else? The PSLF help tool on studentaid.gov is a magical tool for you. It allows you to see if your employer qualifies for PSLF. You'll need to find your employer's EIN. That's on your W-2 form. You can also look it up online. And it allows you to create what's called employer certification forms. If you are searching for this online, people sometimes called as ECFs, for your employer to sign. They'll give it back to you, and you will then submit it to MOHELA or your servicer if it is not MOHELA. All right. Now, this help tool is magical. It tells you, oh, here are your loans. Oh, this is how many we have, how many payments we have for you at this time. These are all your employers. You will want to use this tool and become very familiar with this tool. Now, someone here is thinking, or it's going to tell me, I've used this tool and it says that my employer might not qualify, or it's, the department doesn't have my employer on record. You can still submit the form and then the Department of Education will determine if your employer is certified. We are aware of some issues with this, especially with local employers and county employers. So if you work for a specific township or you work for a specific county in New Jersey, and you get that message, please contact our office and we're happy to help you with that. Now, we also are aware that certain servicers who shall remain nameless have had long delays in processing PSLF forms, even those under the limited waiver. So if you consolidated or you filed for this limited waiver program way back in April or even January or even last year, and your forms have not been processed, that is actually a time where you should reach out to our caseworkers. Here's the number for Jersey City if you live in North Jersey, and there's a number for Barrington if you live in South Jersey. Please reach out to us because we are here to help you so that we can create a case so that those forms can get processed. Right now, we've been told it's about 120 days for paperwork to be processed. So for example, if you were doing your forms in July or August, some of the servicers have just started to process those forms. So if you sent your forms in October and even November, they haven't gotten to you yet, but you should contact us if it's been a long time, so more than 90 days. Please contact us and reach out so that we can look into this for you. All right. I should also mention, if you have specific questions, please make sure you can chat them. Diego and Eileen, our caseworkers, are ready to see your questions and we can field them at the end. Okay, so we talked about the payment pause. We talked about cancellation. We talked about PSLF. Let's talk about this other thing that a lot of folks have heard about, called income-driven repayment, or IDR. Last April 19th to be exact, the Department of Education said, okay, some of our servicers have really messed up in how they counted forbearance or hardship deferments, or how they even looked at military deferments or Peace Corps or AmeriCorps deferments, or how long someone was in a grace period. And they said, fine, we have to go in and look at all federal student loan borrowers for these problems. And we are going to do this, what's called one-time review of everyone's accounts to allow for any month that a borrower was in repayment. So if you were asked to pay your loan and received a bill, you get credit as long as you made any kind of payment, regardless of loan type, as long as it's a federal loan or repayment plan. So they said, okay, we're going to go back in and we're going to look for every month that folks that were in repayment status. Okay, this will help folks achieve PSLF or any kind of income-driven repayment forgiveness or cancellation after 20 or 25 years, depending on your plan. Now, the one that causes a lot of folks heartburn is this forbearance one. So you can go on studentaid.gov and our caseworkers can help you interpret what I am saying here, but you can go in and count how many months you were under forbearance. Now, if you were in 12 months, 1 year, or more than 12 months, 1 year of consecutive forbearance, you will receive credit for all of those months that you were in forbearance. That's consecutive. So if you were in for a year or more of consecutive forbearance, you will receive credit for those months. I will tell you that there are certain servicers that you'll see 4 and 5 years of forbearance. So of consecutive forbearance. So a lot of folks will be taking care of this first bullet, this 12 or more months of consecutive forbearance. Now, it's the second one. This is an or, it's not an and. So if you have 12 months of consecutive forbearance, you're taking care of those 12 months of consecutive forbearance. If you then have, so completely different person, you have 36 months total since 2007 of cumulative forbearance, then you receive all of those 36 or more months of forbearance. So you have to get up to 36. You can't have 35. Now, I will tell you that if you have 35, you can file an appeal with the Department of Education beginning July of next year, and they can look at your form. So again, it's not an either or, it is an either or, it's not an and. Okay, so if you have 12 months of consecutive forbearance, you will receive credit for those 12 months. If you have 36 months cumulative, you will receive credit for those months. Again, this is really confusing, and how to count these and how to see if you qualify. And so please reach out to our caseworkers if you have any questions here. This causes a lot of folks heartburn. All right, so we also know that this process was supposed to start a couple of months ago, where folks are supposed to be able to see on their records and get this credit. And a lot of people are waiting for this credit. They're waiting to get to their 120 months of PSLF time, or they're waiting for, because they've been making payments for 25 years or 20 years. And so they really want to get their loans forgiven. So they're looking for this to happen on their records. Now, the Department of Education came out in October and said, okay, if you are a person that will get PSLF relief, meaning you had 120 payments or months where you were in the right kind of, you have the right kind of student loan, you're in the right kind of repayment plan, and you worked for the right kind of employer for more than 30 hours a week by November 1st, 2022. And you've told us about this, you filed your application. They are going to go in, the Department of Education will go in and look at your files and give you this one-time IDR review credit. Now, it's happening right now. And then you will be able to achieve forgiveness. Now, I will tell everyone that's not like a light switch. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take the Department of Education between now and July 1st of next year to actually go in and do that for anyone for those PSLF payments for 120 months. It's the same for anybody who's been paying on their student loans in those income-based repayment programs or income-driven repayment programs for 20 to 25 years. So if you were not going to have PSLF, you have, 2 or 3 more years of time where you have to work for your qualifying employer. You're not going to see this one-time IDR status change until after July of next year. Okay, but if you were supposed to be owed this before then and you haven't seen it yet, give them a little time. And it will eventually appear. Now, if you have questions as to whether or not you're eligible for this PSLF or these IDR, between now, you would have been eligible before November 1st, please contact our caseworkers. They're very happy to help you make that determination. All right. See, and here you go. Here are those numbers for the caseworkers if you need any help. Okay. Now let's go back here just for a second. I want to just make sure everybody understands this because it's really, really confusing. So if you think that you were in forbearance or you were in some kind of deferment, except for in-school deferment, you will get credit for that time. Especially if it's before 2013, or you're under a bunch of different, you work in the military, AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, etc. If you have one of those specific situations, please contact our office and we are happy to help you. Diego and Aileen and I have gone through a bunch of different folks' files, and we're very able to help you here. So if you have questions, please reach out. Again, if you have not seen anything change on your student loan file on studentaid.gov or with your servicer, and you're saying, I'm supposed to be owed this, it just hasn't happened yet. And it won't happen for a lot of people until next July. Some folks, if you are waiting for this because you actually, you're just waiting for them to process your paperwork, you will see your account change between now and July of next year. If it's beyond that, you'll have to wait until after next July. Please let everyone know we are all very, we all are waiting with bated breath for this to happen. A lot of millions of student loan borrowers are really waiting on the department to process this paperwork, and they are going as fast as they possibly can. Okay, so let's talk about Fresh Start, the program that no one has heard about or very few people has heard about. We were waiting on regulations on this program. They just were published actually last week or the week before. And this is an initiative that was announced in April of this year. So who does this apply to, and why should anyone care? Okay, so if you are delinquent on your student loans, you are in collections on your federal student loans, and you are told, you are delinquent, you're more than 90, 120 days delinquent on your student loans, you are not eligible to take out any more loans. So you can't go back to school, you can't finish your degree, etc. This program allows you to basically wipe the slate clean. It's a one-time wipe the slate clean program. So you have 1 year to opt into the program after the end of the COVID-19 payment pause. So you'll have a year after, sometime next, April, May, June, or July, to opt into the program. And you will be able to then make payments on your loans, but you will also then be able to borrow student loans from the federal government again. You should, if this applies to you, you should be receiving information about this program from your current servicer. So if your current servicer is Advantage or Aidvantage, they will send you information. If they do not send you information, please contact our office so that we can get you the right information. It's Aidvantage, or it's, it was Navient, it might be Nelnet, etc. You will get documentation from them. There will also be documentation available on the Ed site, but we can also help you. Borrowers who are in Fresh Start are eligible for 0% interest on their loans during the payment pause. This is a big deal. So if you decide that you want to do this today or in January or February or March or whatever, you want to do this before the payment pause ends, you will only have to make those payments. You won't be subject to any kind of interest on your loans that you negotiate with your servicer. Okay. This program it is a fresh start for all borrowers. If you have any questions or difficulties or not receiving paperwork about this program, please contact our caseworkers. We are here to help you, to answer your questions about this program. Again, this is something that just was released last week. So if you were to go and call your servicer today, tomorrow about this, they might not be able to give you information over the phone, but you are supposed to be receiving information in written form about being able to enroll in this program. So again, if you have any questions about Fresh Start or any of the other programs, please do not hesitate to contact us. Okay, so last but very much not least, there has been so many scams about all of the programs that I'm talking about today. Please know that almost every single one of us who works for the senator has received one of these scam calls or emails. And you cannot even have student loans and receive these. So if you get a random email, text messages, voicemail, and people want to talk to you about your student loans, no servicer is going to reach out to you by phone unless you have opted into a callback where you've called your servicer and pressed 9 and they call you back. So if anyone reaches out to you and offers you something here, it's most likely a scam or it's a solicitation. Now, the ftc.gov/student loans has all the details about any and all the scams that they are tracking. There are so many, it has risen to the level of the Federal Trade Commission tracking this. All right, so here's the kind of scams that are really out there. So they're going to tell you that you're going to get loan forgiveness on the Biden-Harris plan. They're going to cancel your debt fast tomorrow. That is a scam. Again, we all know from this presentation that cancellation is on pause until the Supreme Court decides that. So they can't have any kind of cancellation. Also, we've talked about today, PSLF is running very slow. So you can't have someone cut in line and get you into the front of the line for your PSLF. That doesn't work. That is a scam. You don't need to pay anyone anything or any kind of fees to get you to apply for the cancellation, for PSLF, to get your IDR situated, etc. You can contact our office. There are a number of nonprofit organizations out there in New Jersey and nationwide that can help you with your student loan problem for free. So if you want to enroll in PSLF, you have problems with that, there are free resources to help you. You do not need to pay someone in order to put your PSLF application together. Again, if you receive something in the mail that has a Department of Education logo on it and tells you to do something, that is going to not be legitimate. Again, we've shown pictures today, and they're on the Department of Education website of what emails look like from the Department of Education. Those are the only official communications. Now, the last thing is you might get text messages or phone calls. People will ask you for your FSA ID. Do not share that with anyone. It's like your social security number, so you shouldn't share it with anyone. Now, if you also receive these calls, emails, letters, please report the fraud to reportfraud@ftc.gov so that those fraudulent or those scammers are reported to the FTC and they can shut those scammers down. Now, if you also need free help, you can start with studentaid.gov. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, also known as the CFPB, can also help you here. And also our caseworkers in our office can help you. So you have a number of free resources at your disposal for assistance with student loans. All right, so here we are at our questions. So if you have any questions right now or later, because sometimes people have to have the information marinate in their minds, you can reach out to our Jersey City and our Barrington caseworkers. Those are their phone numbers. They can help you with any and all student loan issues, including topics that are not covered on this webinar today. But if you have any questions for them, that's their number. We don't have any questions that anyone has been chatting about, which means everybody will just have to call our caseworkers. All right. Thank you all for joining our webinar today. These slides will be posted online and you will be able to access them. And again, if you have any questions, you should call our caseworkers in Jersey City or in Barrington. You can also receive information from studentaid.gov. And if you have any other questions, again, we're happy to help you. And please don't fall for any scams because there are so many out there. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.